Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jaywalker. Today we're going to be asking, what does a graveyard shift, a 100-year-old hospital, and a digital voice recorder have in common? Today on Ghost Stories for Saturday, episode number 6, The Haunted Hospital, part 1. Wait, I don't remember hearing that when I recorded that. So today we're covering electronic voice phenomenon, EVPs, which is as you're recording something and you go back to review it, you hear something, a voice, someone speaking that you didn't hear, a ghost voice, if you will, is what it's often referred to, that you didn't hear while you were recording it. Now, if you had heard it while you were recording it, that then becomes a disembodied voice. A disembodied voice, with the big difference is whether or not you hear it while you're recording. You want a disembodied voice, episodes 2 and 3, the voices on the stairs. That's what we're going after there. So the kind of the background on today is I'm a nurse. I work in hospitals. I work for a large healthcare company here in Utah. And before graduating as a nurse, I was working as a CNA, a certified nurse's assistant, for the same healthcare company. And I worked in the float pool. So we covered 16 different units, 17 units, something like that, over 5 different hospitals. And one of the units that we covered was a very specialized oncology unit up at the oldest hospital in our system. It's one of the oldest hospitals in Utah, in Salt Lake, and like I mentioned, it's the oldest hospital in our system. And so I'm up on this oncology unit, and there's a lot of energy that kind of gets held on to in this hospital to begin with. As I mentioned, it's over 100 years old, and you get into the older sections of the hospital and you can feel a difference in just the building, just some of that energy that's kind of hanging on. There's just a difference in the vibe of the building. And to kind of illustrate that, back 10 years ago, a dozen years ago, something like that, there was displays of different things from the nursing school that was attached to the hospital back in the early days of the 20th century. And one of those displays was on the 3rd floor of this hospital, and it was the full nursing uniform of a nurse that went to school and worked there at this hospital. And I just remember walking past that nursing uniform, I don't know how many times, and just feeling weirdness, just a weird vibe, just something that kind of gave me the creeps every time I walked past it. Of course, me being who I am, a guy that likes the paranormal, tried to walk past that display as often as I could while I was working at that particular hospital. But to get back to tonight's story, so I was working up on this oncology unit, and without telling anyone, I wanted to go try to catch some EVPs, something that I'd been hearing about, watching, learning about at the time, watching things like ghost hunters on TV. I don't remember if it was right around Halloween or not, but one of the radio stations that I listened to used to have a group of ghost hunters on the radio all the time, at least once a week during October. And so in doing that, I'm like, I'm going to try. I've got this voice recorder that I'm using for school. I was in school. I've got this voice recorder. I'm going to use it to try and catch some EVPs. This is what I'm thinking. So I go down to a room at the end of the hallway, and the way this hospital, at least this section of the hospital is set up, is it's one long hallway with pods of rooms going off either side, pods of 4 rooms. And I went to the farthest pod from the main nurse's station. Partially just to help keep from contaminating the EVP session, as well as not trying to give myself away as being, the geek that I am for the paranormal. And so, as I sat up in this room, I remembered that there's one other patient that was in this pod, so it's a pod of 4 rooms. There's one occupied room, and it's across the pod from where I'm at. And the young lady who was in that room had just given birth about 3 weeks ago, so she has this very, very young infant, like 3-4 weeks old, with her in the room. And there was a lot of times when this baby just wasn't happy. There were days when apparently the baby would just cry all night long. And this particular night really wasn't one of those nights, but it would happen, and I think that's part of the reason why they had her in this far end room, and partly because it was one of the bigger rooms as well, and she could keep the baby there and with her. But so I get all set up with my voice recorder in the room and set it up and kind of run through what was then kind of my normal routine of setup for the questions. Hi, my name's Jay. I've got this box. I'm gonna leave it here, and among other things. And before I turn to leave, the baby starts crying, and so it was kind of a toss-out question. Hey, there's a baby across the hall. Can you hear it? I give time for an answer. I walk out the door and I leave it for more than another half an hour. And so half hour later, after I remember, hey, I need to go pick this up, I go grab the voice recorder, sit down and start going through what I'd recorded. And it was at the point where I had asked about that baby that I picked up this first EVP, or what I believe is an EVP. So the way I've got these set up is you'll hear it in context as much as is possible. You'll hear me ask the question, and you'll hear the EVP once, and then 2 more times in fairly quick succession. Here we go. There's a baby across the hall. Can you hear it? So, needless to say, I was a little tripped out when I first heard that. I stopped where I was and left the rest of that 39 minutes, whatever it was on that. I left it and didn't listen to the rest of that for months. I was still in school, and it was talking to one of my teachers that I remember, I need to go and listen to this, because we'd gotten into a discussion of ghosts and different things, and so I'm like, I've got this, I'm going to let you listen to this, and at that point I'm like, I haven't listened to the rest of this. And so I went back and listened to it, and in listening to it, I picked up a couple other things. First one, both of them, because I had left the room and I was gone for half an hour or better. There's no lead up to it. It's just kind of hanging out in the open. So the first one, this next one that we'll set up here is just kind of there. Let you make your own decision on this. Here it goes. So, needless to say, I was shocked again, oh my gosh. Not only did I catch that really cool, right? I heard a voice, affirmative, of, yeah, I can hear that, baby. I heard this. And then spaced throughout the rest of this recording are other sounds. Now, sometimes it's a little tough under using headphones. I hear almost a moan. Sometimes it sounds maybe chair moving. I don't know. I'll let you listen to this 30 EVP and let you make the decision on this, what you think it is. Give it a listen. Now, it is of note to say that there was no chair that would have sounded like that moving in that room. There was no one in that room. As I've mentioned before, the room was empty of any patients. I had left the room for more than a half an hour. So during this recording session, there's nothing, no one that should have made any of these noises. Now, let me know what you think you hear. Leave it down here in the comments here on YouTube. If you're coming over from Facebook, you can leave it there in the Facebook comments. But leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Now, join me again on the Jaywalker. Coming up soon, more EVPs, more stories about disembodied voices, more ghost stories, family ghost stories, and even a little bit of a legend from my hometown. Catch you on the next Jaywalk. We'll see you soon. Remember, if you like what you see, subscribe, hit that bell, like the videos, and most importantly, share it with your friends.